I didn't cry when my mother-in-law said I wasn't family enough to sit at the main table. I didn't cry when my husband just looked at his plate. I picked up my glass of water, took a slow sip, and nodded like she'd commented on the weather. That was 11 months before the anniversary party, before everything. Let me back up. My husband's family has a tradition. Every 5 years, they rent out the same event hall in Scottsdale, the one with the terracotta tile floors and the string lights wrapped around every beam, and they throw a party for his parents' wedding anniversary. It's a big deal. Printed invitations, assigned seating, a slideshow. His mother, Vivienne, has been planning the 35th since before my husband and I even got engaged. I knew going in that Vivienne didn't love me. She'd wanted her son, Todd, to marry someone from their church, someone whose family summered in the same Arizona towns, someone whose mother she already knew. Instead, he came home with me, a 31-year-old structural engineer from Columbus, Ohio, whose idea of dressing up was swapping sneakers for loafers. I didn't summer anywhere. My parents ran a small landscaping business. Vivienne shook my hand the first time we met and said, "How interesting." Not my job, not my name. Me, how interesting. I tried for 3 years. I learned how she took her coffee. I sent birthday cards with handwritten notes inside. I sat through dinners where his father, Roland, talked over me every single time I opened my mouth. And I smiled and passed the breadbasket and never once made it Todd's problem. Todd told me I was too sensitive. He told me his mom was just like that with everyone. He told me I needed to give it more time. I gave it 3 years. 4 months before the anniversary party, Vivienne called Todd. He took the call in the kitchen. I was in the living room, not trying to listen. But our apartment isn't big, and she has a carrying voice. I heard the party and seating, and then, very clearly, "It'll just be cleaner if she's not there, sweetheart. She doesn't really fit the aesthetic we're going for." The aesthetic. I sat very still on the couch and waited for Todd to say something. "Anything," he said. "I'll talk to her, Mom." He came into the living room with his hands in his pockets and the look on his face that I'd come to recognize, the one that meant he needed me to make something easy for him. He said his parents wanted to keep the party intimate, just close family and their oldest friends. He said he was sorry. He knew it wasn't fair, but it was their event, and maybe I could plan something for just the two of us that weekend. I asked him if he considered me close family. He didn't answer fast enough. I told him fine. I told him I understood. I told him to have a good time. What I did not tell him was that 3 weeks earlier, a project I'd been leading at work, a reinforced pedestrian bridge in downtown Phoenix, had been featured in a regional engineering journal. My firm gave me a bonus, a real one. And for the past 8 months, I had quietly been in conversations with a boutique hotel group based in Tempe about a consulting contract for their new resort expansion. We'd signed the agreement 2 months before the anniversary party. The contract was worth more than Todd made in a year. I hadn't told him yet because I was waiting for the right moment. I decided the right moment could wait a little longer. The week the invitations went out, cream-colored, wax-sealed, addressed to everyone in the family except me. I made a phone call of my own. My college roommate, Priya, had gotten married the previous spring and moved into a property outside Sedona that her husband's family had owned for years. Not a house. A compound, really. Main house. 2 guest casitas, a pool that looked out over the Red Rocks, an outdoor kitchen with a wood-burning pizza oven. 7 acres. She'd told me when she moved in that I had an open invitation whenever I wanted it. I'd never taken her up on it. I call him on a Tuesday night. "How many people can you sleep?" I asked. She laughed. "Why? What are you planning?" I told her. She went quiet for a second, then said, "I'll stock the fridge." Here's the thing about being the person everyone overlooks. You pay attention to other people because nobody's paying attention to you. I had been watching Todd's family for 3 years, which meant I also knew who in that family had been quietly pushed to the margins the same way I had. There was his aunt, Constance, his mother's younger sister, who hadn't been invited to the last anniversary party because she'd said something honest about Roland's business decisions at a dinner in 2019 and had never fully been forgiven. She lived alone in Mesa and sent birthday texts that nobody responded to. There was Todd's cousin Felix, who is gay, who had brought his partner, Wesley, to Thanksgiving 2 years ago, and whom Roland had seated at the kids' table, literally, the folding table in the hallway, and pretended it was a space issue. There was his grandmother on his father's side, Nana June, who was 81 and sharp as a tack, and who had once leaned over to me at Christmas and whispered, "Vivienne always was theatrical." Nana June wasn't excluded from the party, but she'd quietly told Felix she didn't want to go because standing for long periods hurt her back, and Vivienne wouldn't hear of people sitting during the toast portion. There were 3 more, friends of the family who had drifted away after small social crimes that Vivienne had cataloged and never forgiven. People who had known Todd since he was a kid, who still asked about him, who weren't invited because Vivienne's guest list was also, always, a ledger of scores. I called them all. Constance picked up on the second ring and said yes before I even finished the sentence. Felix called Wesley into the room and put me on speaker. Nana June said, "Sedona in October? Honey, I'll bring my good cardigan." I booked everyone's travel. Non-refundable because I wasn't second-guessing this. I arranged for a car to pick up Nana June so she wouldn't have to navigate the airport alone. I ordered groceries for delivery to Priya's place. Not just basics, proper food, the kind of meal you'd want at a celebration. Fresh-caught salmon from a place in Scottsdale that shipped same day. Good wine. A bakery in Tempe made us a cake, white chocolate raspberry, because I'd overheard Nana June mention once that it was her favorite. The weekend of the anniversary party, I drove to Sedona with a cooler in my backseat and a playlist I'd been building for a month. The property was everything Priya had described. We pulled back the glass doors of the main house, and the whole valley opened up in front of us, layered red rock formations going pink and orange in the late afternoon sun, the air dry and sage-scented and nothing like August in Phoenix. Nana June stood at the edge of the patio and was quiet for a long moment, and then said, "Well, this is something." That night we cooked together. Felix and Wesley grilled. Constance made her cornbread, which she said she hadn't made for company in 2 years. Priya's husband Amir brought out his record player and put on something warm and old. We ate outside under the string lights Priya had hung along the pergola, and the conversation went everywhere. Nana June telling stories about Roland and Todd when they were young that made everyone laugh, Felix and Wesley talking about the apartment they were finally buying. Constance mentioning almost shyly that she'd been seeing someone, a retired teacher named Harold, who she thought might be serious. I don't know what I expected to feel. Satisfaction, maybe, or the particular edge of spite that had carried me through the planning. Instead, I felt something quieter, something more like recognition. Here were all these people who had been made to feel like not enough, and here we were, enough, obviously, for each other. I posted 3 photos to Instagram that night, nothing showy, Nana June laughing at the table, the sunset behind the red rocks, a wide shot of everyone around the fire after dinner, faces lit warm, the kind of photo that looks like exactly what it was. I tagged Priya and turned my phone face down. By 9 a.m. the next morning, I had 43 unread messages. I know because I looked at the notification count before I opened any of them. 43. I set my phone back down and poured myself coffee and went to sit on the patio. The light was already doing something extraordinary to the rocks. I sat there for probably 20 minutes before I went back inside. Most of the messages were from Todd. Some were from his sister, Amber, who had my number from a group chat we'd both been added to and never actually used. There were 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. There was one, at 11:47 p.m., from a name I hadn't expected to see, Roland. Todd's messages started controlled and got progressively less so. The first few were variations of, "Hey, can you call me?" and "I think we need to talk." By midnight, they had shifted into, "My mom is upset, and why would you post that, and this is embarrassing our family." By 1 a.m., there was one that said simply, "Who paid for all of this?" That one I read twice, not because I was surprised, because I wanted to be very clear on what was actually bothering him. Amber's messages were more direct. She wanted to know why I'd made a scene. She wanted to know if I understood what I'd done to her mother's night. She said Vivienne had been crying and that the anniversary dinner had been ruined because people kept looking at their phones and asking about the photos. I thought about that for a while. I thought about how a party can be ruined by photographs of other people having a good time somewhere else. I thought about what it means to be so invested in exclusion that inclusion, elsewhere, registers as an attack. I didn't respond to Amber. Roland's message was 4 words, Call me. It's important. I didn't respond to Roland either. I responded to Todd at noon, when I was back in Phoenix and unpacked and calm. I told him I'd had a lovely weekend. I told him Nana June sent her love. I told him I thought we needed to talk. Not about the party, not about his family's feelings, but about a pattern I had been absorbing for 3 years that I wasn't willing to absorb anymore. He came home that evening still in his party clothes, tie loosened, and the first thing he said was, "My mom wants an apology." I said, "I know." He said, "Are you going to give her one?" I said, "No." He looked at me like I'd said something in a foreign language. Todd is not a bad person. I want to be careful about that, because this story isn't about him being a villain. He's someone who was raised to keep the peace by giving the loudest person in the room whatever they needed. And he'd never really examined whether that was costing anyone else something. He'd never had to, because the person it cost most was me, and I had been very agreeable about absorbing it. I told him all of this. Quietly, without drama, sitting at our kitchen table with 2 cups of coffee going cold between us. I told him about the not family enough and the aesthetic. I told him about the seating and the toast and the 3 years of small erasures. I told him I loved him and I did not want our marriage to end, but I needed him to decide, actually decide, not perform deciding, whose corner he was in. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I didn't know it was that bad." I said, "I know you didn't. You weren't paying attention. That was 6 weeks ago. We are still married. We are in couples counseling, which Todd suggested and I agreed to. He has had 2 conversations with his mother that he has been honest with me about, which is new. He told her he would not be attending family events that excluded me. Vivian said he was being dramatic. He said he was being married. I don't know how this ends. I didn't know if Vivian will come around or if she'll decide that being right is worth more than having her son in her life. I don't know what Roland's message was important about, and I haven't asked. I suspect it was about the photos, about the public visibility of being out-hosted, about something that felt to them like a declaration of war and that I experienced as a dinner party. What I know is this. Constance has texted me every week since Sedona. Felix and Wesley sent a housewarming invitation for the apartment closing in December. Nana June called me on a random Wednesday to tell me she'd found the white chocolate raspberry cake at a bakery near her house and had bought one for herself just because she felt like it. And I got a note in the mail from her, actual mail in her handwriting, on cardstock from a box she must have had for decades, that said, "Thank you for reminding me I'm still worth celebrating. I have it on my refrigerator. I don't need Vivian to decide I'm family. I didn't call him." The note from Nana June is still on my refrigerator. I walk past it every morning when I make coffee, and sometimes I stop and read it again. Not because I've forgotten what it says, but because it still surprises me that 8 words on a cardstock can land harder than 3 years of trying to earn a seat at someone's table. I've been thinking a lot about what actually happened that weekend. Not the Instagram photos, not the 43 messages, not Vivian's feelings about the aesthetic of her party. I mean, what happened underneath all of that? Because the truth is, nothing I did was dramatic. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't make a speech. I just decided, quietly, that the people who had been told they didn't belong somewhere deserved to belong somewhere else instead. And then I did the work to make that happen. That's the part I keep coming back to. The doing. It would have been easy to sit with the hurt of being excluded and let it calcify into bitterness, or to keep absorbing it because keeping the peace felt like the more mature choice. I'd done that for 3 years. And the thing about swallowing something over and over is that eventually you start to wonder why you're the one who keeps having to swallow it. What changed wasn't my circumstances. The bonus, the consulting contract, those things gave me the means, but they weren't the reason. The reason was that I finally decided my own judgment was worth trusting. That when I looked at a situation and thought this is wrong, that assessment was accurate. It sounds simple. It wasn't. Trusting your own read on something when everyone around you is telling you you're too sensitive, you're overreacting, you just need to give it more time. That takes a kind of quiet courage that doesn't announce itself. It just holds. And then there's the question of what you do with that clarity once you have it. I could have used it to burn something down. I didn't. I used it to build something. A weekend, a table, a reason for Constance to make her cornbread for company again. Felix and Wesley, sitting somewhere they were fully welcome. Nana June watching the sunset over the red rocks and saying, "Well, this is something." That wasn't revenge. That was just what happens when you redirect the energy you've been spending on managing other people's comfort back towards something real. Vivienne will probably never understand that what she lost wasn't a battle. It was a chance to know people who would have genuinely loved her family, if her family had let them. Constance. Nana June. People who had been right there the whole time. That's the cost of building your world around exclusion. Eventually, the circle gets so tight that nobody interesting can breathe inside it. Todd is trying. I believe that. Some people need to be shown clearly what a pattern looks like before they can see it. And once they see it, they actually do something about it. I don't know yet what we're building toward. But I know I'm not invisible in it anymore, and that's the only version of this marriage worth staying in. I have the note on the refrigerator. I have Felix's housewarming date in my calendar. I have Priya's number and an open invitation to Sedona anytime I want it. That's what I know for certain. The people who see you, really see you, don't need to be convinced to include you. And the ones who do need convincing have already told you everything you need to know.